Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Steins episode 15. So yeah, we're only doing episode 15 this week, mainly because I kind of dozed off for a bit there. Like a few hours back, I was just watching some stuff, and I was going to get ready to record and everything, and I just dozed off. I wake up and it's like 6 p.m. and it's currently like 25 minutes later, but still. At this point, it's like, I think I can only get to one today, but I'm still getting to it. I promised I would get to Steins Gate 0 today, and I'm getting to it. So last time we left off, we found out that, oh, her name is escaping me. Kagari. We found out that Kagari Sheena is in the motorcycle getup, but we also kind of put together that she's not the only one who's worn it, and she wasn't the one who was initially wearing it. She's definitely brainwashed currently, and it's been like, what, I think it was 6 months since she first disappeared. She's definitely behind it, and now a few of the crew are going to be getting together to start building some stuff and doing some stuff behind Okabe's back. We have Daru, we have I am blanking on her name now. His daughter. I can't think of her name. But we have those two, and they've just invited Maho back to Japan to help out as well. So this should be interesting. Either way, we are going to get started with this. I know nothing about the episode, because I just want to get to this and not have to worry about it around the time that he would be getting home. So, in the meantime, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. Okay, and we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, I'm sure you've seen a lot, if you're on Twitter, if you're on social media in general, I'm sure you've seen a lot of those images going around, especially if you're involved in fandoms like I am. A lot of those images that, like, say, like, post your, like, top 5 or top 10 or whatever of these types of characters. One of those that I saw going around on Twitter at one point, and I think I saw it on Facebook at one point too, but definitely on Twitter, it was, like, the worst dads in anime. And, or no, it wasn't worst dads in anime, it was like a ranking list. It was like, the top was like god tier dads, the best dads in all of anime, and the bottom was like shit tier dads, you know, the worst dads in all of anime. And I was going through and I was adding my own characters to each tier, because I wanted to, like, make it my own list, you know? And Daru was one of the characters I put either near the bottom or at the very bottom, in one of the bottom 2 tiers. And my reasoning for that was because of his misogynistic, sexist, just horribly disgusting attitude towards women in general. And this was like months ago, I think, at this point. So I'm just going to say that off the bat. After this episode, and after even more episodes other than just this one, I have seen Daru grow as a character in such amazing ways. And honestly, I wouldn't put him as, like, god tier. He's definitely still not the best father necessarily, but he definitely rises quite a few ranks for me. Because the thing is, Daru we really have found out by this point why he acts the way he acts. Why he's so perverted and disgusting and sexist and all. It's self-confidence issues. He feels like no self-respecting girl out there, especially one as beautiful as this one. Yuki, I think her name is. Names sometimes elude me. I think it's Yuki, but no self-respecting girl, especially this one, would fall for someone as someone like him. And he has these issues where he constantly puts himself down. He sees himself as a slob, a horrible person, just this waste of space. And because of it, because he sees himself that way, he does nothing to actually better himself from that. He faces these issues, but doesn't actually work to progress himself. Which is very realistic. There are a lot of people in this world who see themselves in this way. Whether it's depression or anxiety or whatever else that makes them see themselves this way. And they end up becoming the very thing that they see themselves as, and not being able to come back from that because they're just so ingrained in that idea of themselves that they just don't believe that they're worthy of anything else. And it's really depressing. It's sad. And I've been there. I've been to points. I've been rejected when I've asked girls out and stuff. I've been rejected, and it's made me feel worthless. And I've asked myself, like, who would date someone like me? And there have been times where, because of it, I've gone even deeper down, and I've lost confidence. I've lost the real view of who I am. It's a very realistic thing. And a lot of people go through it, not just me, but very many others. And we see in this episode that people who go through that kind of self-confidence and self-doubt issues, they just need someone to push them in the right direction. Someone who cares enough about them to give them that nudge and show that they care and show that they do believe they are worthy of love. For Daru, it was Suzuha. For me, I still struggle with these issues, admittedly. Because, I mean, I've only ever been on one date in my life, and it really didn't go anywhere. And I have had huge self-confidence issues, and combining that with just my autism, my depression, my anxiety, the fact that I have a hard time speaking to people in real life, it all works, it like works against me in a way. But it's episodes of shows like this and other things, games, movies, whatever, that really show me that we're going to have those moments of doubt. We're going to have those times where we don't think we're worthy, whether of someone else's love and affection or anything. This can apply to anything. We're going to have those moments. And we're going to have them over and over again. Even if we end up falling in love with someone and marrying them, we'll still have those doubts every now and again. I've known people who have been married who have asked, like, how did you ever fall for someone like me? They've asked their significant other, how could you love someone like me? Because they still have those doubts. And that's going to keep happening. But it's episodes and movies and games and stuff like this that go into this kind of thing that teach me and teach others that yes, you're going to stumble and fall. You're going to be awkward. You're going to weird people out. But if you don't try, then you'll never have a chance. You need to at least try, and you need to be yourself. And if they don't love you for who you are, then, that's their loss. Daru went from a character who I thought was funny and enjoyable to watch, but I actually hated on a moral level, to someone who's a lot more in depth and just intriguing. Does he still say those things, those horribly sexist things all the time? Yes. But we know now that he's doing it to kind of hide his self-confidence issues, his doubts, his, in a way, hatred of himself. Now, and that's not always the case with these situations. There are plenty of perverted, misogynistic people out there who are just perverted, misogynistic people. They don't necessarily have anything going on in their lives. They don't necessarily have a bunch of self-confidence issues. But there are a lot of times where they do. And we now know for sure that Daru is one of them. And in these situations, when you're feeling doubt, you have to be able to be yourself. Because if you try to be someone else, if you try to put on an act, it's going to go on like what happened in this episode. Daru scared Yuki away by acting like someone he wasn't, by acting like someone that Yuki just didn't love. She fell in love with him in the first place. She liked him in the first place because of who he was, because he was goofy, because he was a little awkward and silly, because he's a huge nerd. She's a nerd too. She loves cosplay and hanging out and doing silly things. She's just as much a nerd as he is. Maybe not in all the same ways. But the point is that when he learned to be himself and have confidence in who he is, it worked. And it's not always going to end up like that in real life. It's not always going to work. It's not always going to be the right person or at the right time or whatever else. Sometimes people just won't like you for who you are. And like I said, that's on them. Now, this episode also took things from Suzua's perspective. She has a lot of issues as well. She has a huge guilt in her heart, blaming herself for her mother's death. And I understand why, but at the same time, it's not her fault. It's the fault of just everything that had happened in that future timeline. It's the fault of CERN, of the people who made that drone. It's not hers. Yes, she always felt it was. Because she always felt that if she hadn't been out there, her mother wouldn't have had to sacrifice herself to save her. And so she wanted to push this relationship with Daru and Yuki together because she wanted to see her parents together. She wanted to see them as a couple, see them interacting and loving on each other. Because she wanted to remember the good times. She had very few of them growing up because of the world she did grow up in. And she wants to be able to remember those good times and make new good memories. And it's really fucking sad. Like, she's lived a horrifying life. Having to go through all of that? You saw it. I think I showed it in another flashback or whatnot too. She had a gun on her. She had a gun draped over her shoulder. As a kid. She lived in a world where that was normal. Where that wasn't this weird, unusual thing. And she proved she knew how to use it too. She shot that drone down after her mother's death. And And speaking of the death, I like that they did it the way they did, because it made it more impactful. I hate it when shows or movies or something make the death feel really cheesy in a way. Like, it's like, oh, this person's shot down, but they're gonna stay alive for just a few minutes to be able to give one last sad talk to the main character or something. I mean, it works in some occasions. But I prefer it when it's more very sudden, and the death just either kind of happens or it's more realistic, is a good way to put it. If you've seen anyone play or played yourself the video game The Last of Us, there are spoilers here, but the game is like very old at this point. It came out in 2013, I believe. So yeah, spoilers for The Last of Us. If you don't want to hear it, skip ahead just, I guess, a minute or two. At the beginning of The Last of Us, the character Joel, who's kind of like one of the two main characters, his daughter dies during the first days of the what's basically a zombie apocalypse. His daughter, who's like 12 years old, she dies when shot by a soldier who didn't want to do it, and he was just doing his job, but because he had to do his job and he felt like he had no other choice, he shot her down. This 12-year-old girl. And after being shot down, Joel went up to her, he held her in his arms. She didn't like have any last thing to say. She was sputtering. She was choking out on her own blood. She was crying and gasping for air, and then she died. There was no big, sad final words between them. She gasped for air and stuff, and all of that stuff I said, which is that's fine. But she didn't like have this big, like, dramatic last words moment. It made it feel real. It made it feel raw and emotional. But when you have stuff that, like, gives that, like, that final little thing, it's like, oh, they've been shot up, but they're still able to talk for just a minute more to give this last little words of encouragement, or I love you, or something like that. It feels fake. It feels like they have to force that kind of thing in. So I like that in this series, in Steins Gate Zero, Yuki's death in the future it's very sudden. Like, she sees that the drone is about to shoot at Suzuha, so she pushes Suzuha out of the way, and the thing rips her to shreds, and she dies. Just like that. No last words, no I love yous, or anything like that. Her last words to her daughter, I think it was basically just yelling her name and everything. She didn't get to have even a proper goodbye, you would think. But that's how it would work in that kind of situation. She was ripped to shreds by that gun, and she was dead before she hit the ground. So I both love and hate that. I love it because it's realistic, and it's definitely better in terms of storytelling and emotion, but I hate it because it's so freaking sad. Now, the episode also delved into Maho coming back. They talked a little bit about Kaguri. We had a little bit of Okabe talking to Professor Leskinen, and even a little bit kind of hinting that he's been shunning Mayuri in a way. He's been kind of shutting her out and focusing on his own things a little too much. Which is not a good thing, of course. He definitely should not be doing that. But he is. Just straight up, he is. They're definitely building up to a bunch of things with this episode, but the main focus was still on Daru and Suzuha. And I like that. It didn't, like, hugely progress the main stories, but it did enough with this little side plot, this character development plot for Daru, and it felt like it fit in. and again, they still connected this episode with the stuff that is going on. Like, we still had Maho return, like was built up in the last episode. We still had stuff going on with Okabe trying to get into Victor Kandria University, talking to Professor Laskin and all. We had Kaguri mentioned and even shown. So it's still building stuff up. But the main focus of the episode was on something else. And I think that's the best way to do it. When you're doing an episode that's either a filler episode or a side story or something in the middle of a big plot, the way to do it is you still have to show that the plot is still a thing. You still have to have it at least in there somewhere. And notably in there. And you have to make it, like, fit. You have to make it feel natural. You can't just make it feel like, oh, they just threw that in there to make sure we didn't forget what the main story was. No, you have to make it feel like it belongs as part of the episode. And they succeeded in that with this. I really enjoyed this episode. It gave great development for Daru and changed him from a less developed character to someone who's like who really just has a lot of depth to him and is more than we like to think a lot of the time. And it gave us more character and development for Suzuha, and it's building up to some things that are gonna definitely be important, both with Kaguri and especially with Okabe and Mayuri. I really am interested to see what they do with that, because, well, I mean, I ship them, for one. Like, very much so. But also, I feel like Mayuri could end up having some kind of breakdown, and I hate to say that. I really hate to say that. But I feel like that could possibly happen if he keeps snubbing her like this. And he's not trying to do it. It's not intentional. It's not like he's ignoring her, per se. It's just his mind is focusing on other things at the moment, and he's unintentionally putting her on the back burner. But the thing is, I think she needs him right now. With everything that's been going on, I think she just needs her lifelong best friend, and the one she clearly has a thing for. I mean, that was obvious in the original Steins Gate, but it's definitely been made even more obvious in this series. And it's technically a different world line, but still. So yeah. Tell me in the comments below what you thought of episode 15 of Steins Gate Zero, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.
And though you've come through many obstacles, shed tears along the way, you're still standing, live, love, laugh another day.